Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast, powered by the Utah Outdoor Association. We're here with Dusty Heyrend, who runs customer support for Magnum bikes. I'm excited about this one because most people enjoy riding a bike, and more people will enjoy it if it's electrified and a little bit faster and a little bit easier.
Sure.
So we've got some fun stories to tell here today.
Yeah.
Let's just start with some fun softballs right down the middle for those not familiar with Magnum bikes. Quick founding story, and how did you guys get your start?
Sure. So Magnum electric bikes, I've been with them a couple of years now, but they've been around for about 10 years. So just as long as e-bikes have really been popular, electric bikes were already popular, and conversion kits converting analog bikes to electric bikes were popular in Israel, where one of our founders lives. He grew up in New York, though, and he partnered with an old friend of his who's from Utah. Jesse Lappin. So those two guys are the ones who founded Magnum Bikes. And in the beginning, it was like them with a couple electric bikes in the back of a truck, driving around to find bike shops to sell them. We're a bike shop brand, so most Magnums are sold in a bike shop. And then, of course, you can buy them like on our website direct. We're never going to stop anyone from doing that. And then we have a few factory stores, too, about 4 factory stores.
Very cool.
So
with all things, whether it's cars, skateboards, you can probably electrify anything if you're crazy enough.
Sure, they are.
It's like, I really enjoy riding a bike. I enjoy it less if I'm in a hurry. It sucks showing up to a meeting all sweaty.
Sure.
Or I enjoy it less if I'm out of shape and I have to go up hills, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, engineers are going to see that and be like, well, we got a solution for that. It sounds like that's kind of a little bit of what happened here. And there's obviously certain markets in the world where it's a glorious fit.
Mm-hmm.
But
certainly,
as we were talking a little bit before, there's uses for all of this all over the place and in any setting, really, right?
Yeah.
So sounds like a nice startup story, back of a truck, just starting with the relationships, the suppliers, all of that. The basics of an e-bike, let's just talk about that.
Sure.
You can ride it like a normal bike.
Our bikes are maybe different than some of the ones on the market. Some of the bikes on the market are just a pedelectric bike. There's no throttle. Every Magnum, though, has a throttle. It's one of our passions. And our tagline is "Feel the Power." So kind of like some of the other brands out there, Baku, Rambo, Aventon is certainly one of the big ones. Rad Power bikes. Our bikes are similar to theirs in that they have a throttle, but also you can do pedal assist. You can kind of choose how you access the power on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling particularly lazy, or if you just want to enjoy the spring air,
sure,
you just throttle.
Yeah,
like a motorcycle.
I usually throttle from a standstill. I ride a lot of our bikes. I'm also involved in a little bit of our product testing and stuff.
Yeah.
I take a bike home every night.
Yeah.
I certainly start off with a throttle just for fun.
Yeah.
And also because electric bikes are heavy, they're getting a little better with technologies and batteries and stuff, but they are certainly heavier than a non-electric bike.
Yeah.
And so from a standstill, it's nice to have that throttle just to get up to speed.
Yeah.
But certainly we'll have customers who maybe have adaptive needs or something else. Some of our customers only use throttle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll get just scooting along and you'll have a great day. You rode your bike to the train and then took the train and then
to your studio.
So
yeah.
You got a little exercise.
Yeah, I did about 3 miles to the train, and then from the train station to here is probably only a half mile, something like that. Yep.
But that's more than I've done, sitting in a chair so far, and
sure.
You got a little stimulation.
Right, a little fresh air, certainly. And I think the perspective, too. There's an electric bike smile that if people haven't ridden an e-bike, that first time they ride it, you got to catch that on camera and put it in a jar. It's amazing. It's beautiful. My mom's one of those people. My mom's in her 60s. I got her an e-bike a couple of years ago, and she has never ridden a bike as much as she does now.
Yeah.
She was never a cyclist, and now she got a rack on her car and she goes places so that she can ride her e-bike. It's a really cool way to get her outside and more involved in her surroundings and connect in a way that I never saw her do growing up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you can probably still get the same amount of exercise because you can go further, but you don't get tuckered out as much, and you can kind of control it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether you're going uphill, downhill, it opens up the world to a lot of opportunities that exist. You might either you can't do it, knees are too bad or whatever, or you're just too lazy. It just takes a lot of excuses out of it.
Yeah, and I love one of my favorite case studies for that is like using it because you have other pursuits you want to focus on, right? Like, so like there's a gentleman in Park City who manages a shop up there. They don't sell Magnums, but at some point he saw us at a trade show or something, and he reached out and said, hey, I want to get one of your bikes. I'm going to try to get the shop to pick up your line. I want to use it for fly fishing. I'm a fly fishing guide, and I want a bike to get me from point A to point B along the river. And so we gave him, really good industry discount on one because I was like, well, yeah, let's get this guy on a Magnum. Why not? And that's a really fun use for him is like if you could do 10, 15 miles easy along the river and get to like all your favorite spots and not be tuckered out from the biking or have it take 4 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good for, kind of spreading out the fishers and they're not all trying to fish.
They're not all in the same hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but you mentioned the smile, right? Like the first time I rode my e-bike, I felt like I was 12 years old again, right? And it was to go get milk, which for the last 15 years would have been, I'll get in the car and go.
Yeah.
But henceforth, it's like, I'm going to do an errand, hop on the e-bike, and I'm having fun, getting a little bit of exercise, and it's clean.
Sure. It's a great excuse to get out and just get some fresh air too.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just as fast, right?
Oh yeah. Faster in some ways. One of my favorite exercises is I'm one of the few people in the company that when we go get lunch or go somewhere, no matter the weather, I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a bike and I'll say, hey, I'll race you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go have a meeting or we're going to have a lunch meeting at this restaurant in downtown Salt Lake. I win every time in the city, as you probably know. A bike's a lot faster than a car. You're not sitting in traffic and you have more open routes to you.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, it's all fun and games. You can, build a couple at a time, but eventually like you've got to scale, right?
Sure.
And so that, you got to crack open an Excel spreadsheet and you got to like start to foster relationships and build the business.
Sure.
And that you've got competitors and you've got to market this in the right ways. And, what were the next steps after, product market fit, minimum viable product? What were the steps then to like turn this into a real company with real growing pains and real, monetization?
Sure. So the two founders, Yoni Kamen is the originator, the founder, our CEO, and then our COO, Jesse Lappin, is the one who's from Utah. Yoni has a product kind of background and certainly analytical. Jesse has a magnificent sales background. I've had him take a bike order I was putting in for a dealer that was for like 4 bikes. I've had him turn that into 50.
Yeah.
He's that kind of salesman. He's really, he has a gift, or a curse. So Jesse was really, I think, responsible for growing our dealer network. And then I think we were lucky or well-planned enough to have a product that seems a little better designed than maybe some. There's some e-bike brands I've seen on the market that some of the hardware on them, the parts look like maybe they're bolted on with like a steel U-bolt from Home Depot or something, right? So our bikes had a little bit more elegant design to them and some value propositions in the features that just made them fit really well in this kind of middle price point. They're certainly way nicer than what you'll get on Amazon for $1,000. Yeah. But they're also not a $6,000 to $10,000 luxury e-bike brand.
Yeah.
And so plus then we offer a throttle too. And I think we always have. So far, it's true that every Magnum has a throttle. We've looked at models not offering a throttle, but I think that really helps us fit in the market in a place. Another way that we really fit is for a bike shop. Even though we're not as big as some companies, when their customers come in, they like the look of a Magnum, and the bike shop themselves, those IBD dealers, independent bike dealers, they love the margin. Our margin is, so far that I've seen in the bike industry, the highest, like a crazy high margin. If Magnum fired me today, what I'd probably want to do is start a bike shop, much to my wife's chagrin, and I'd certainly carry Magnum just because it's a great brand. It's a U.S. company based in Salt Lake. There's people who answer the phone when you call, so you can get parts, you can get support. And then also the margin for our dealers is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people, obviously grew up riding bikes, whether they're 10 speeds or BMX.
Sure. Banana seat, Schwinn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, it just needs to work, right?
Right.
I've got friends that are big mountain bikers, and it breaks. Some can fix it on their own, but some can't, and they walk it out. They are bitter when that happens.
Oh yeah, our
right?
customers. I've had customers call before, angry, barely getting cell reception. Like my bike quit. A lady recently over the summer was like, "I'm in a forest with bears in it." You know, she had in her mind that she was going to get eaten by bears when her e-bike broke down. Turned out the bike had turned off because she stopped to take a picture. They have like a sleep timer on them so the battery doesn't run down. And she had forgotten how to turn it on because it was a brand new product to her, right? Yeah. So she forgot where the power button was. She was easy to take care of, but some of them certainly aren't.
Yeah.
Right. They want it to work, and they don't know. An e-bike is more complicated than an analog bike, so they may not know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we do, because I run our customer support team, is talking with people over the phone. Like, oh, okay, do you know how to turn your bike on? And we usually have to like sleuth the problem, go back to the basics, and fix it however we can.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the nice things about our company, honestly, is I've done a little market research and tried to get a hold of other companies, other e-bike companies on their phone customer support lines, and I think we're pretty easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And ultimately, for every e-bike company, including you guys, like the battery technology is kind of critical, right?
Yep. It's only going to get better too.
Yeah. Lighter, longer, better. If that, hadn't evolved to the where it had, like, we wouldn't be talking.
Sure. You can't, right? Yeah. If you had to have 3 car batteries on your e-bike and they weighed 35, 40 pounds, there's no way that the product would have met the possible demand for it, right? There's just no way. The product certainly had to get lighter and sleeker. And as I said, that's going to continue. There's some new battery technology using like nanocarbon tubes and stuff, which is going to be pretty cool, hopefully. It could lighten batteries by 100%, 200%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that'll be on you guys to figure out how to implement that into the product.
Sure.
Hopefully, for those that already have bikes, you can replace the old battery with the new.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun of being a business, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting fact, though. It's an interesting point that you bring up. Obsoletism is a problem right now, especially in e-bikes. But it's that way with any tech product, right? You get a tech product, you don't want it to be obsolete in a year or two.
Yeah.
You spend some money on it, and I think we've all been there where a company changes something just so you have to buy a new one, right? Yeah. A phone or a charger or some port or some interface that changes, and you're like, they did this, so I have to buy a new one. I hate them for this.
Yeah.
That's one thing we certainly don't do, and we try to support our bikes with parts. The owner Yoni has set up to 7 years.
Okay.
So I would say you should be able to get parts for your Magnum up to 7 years after purchase. That's what we try to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By then, your ROI will be fantastic. As the purchaser and individual. All right. You mentioned, the design aesthetic and the quality of the parts, right? Mm-hmm. For me, I don't care how things look most of the time. Some people, that's the selling point. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like, can I abuse this thing?
Right.
It'll still answer the bell, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But you guys have various designs for all sorts of lifestyles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's, again, you guys as a company figuring out, like, that is a glorious market. We'll get to that eventually, but we're going to focus on X, Y, Z. How does that work? How did it work in the early days of, like, this is the group we're going to go after? And how does it work now where you're picking out the demographics in the next market?
Yeah. So traditionally, our customers for Magnum, our demographic is 55 and older, male and female, about evenly split. And it was like, the baby boomer generation, people like my mom, like our parents and grandparents, and those people discovering bikes again, maybe for the first time, right? Getting that e-bike smile, that joy. That's been our bread and butter so far. I think the demographics we're going after now are maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit hipper, and maybe a little more aggressive. Someone maybe like yourself who's like, I just want a bike I can abuse till the sun goes down and do the same thing the next day.
Yeah.
We've been, for the most part, focusing on that commuter and that kind of recreational customer. And so there's certainly some other demographics and some periphery demographics that we haven't gone after before. I think you have to, it's not just how you market your product, but it's also just the product itself, right? Yeah. So there's a couple bikes we're launching in 2023, things we've never done before. A mid-drive bike. All of our bikes previously were hub motors. Hub motor e-bikes, there's so many good things about them, but then there's a few drawbacks too. A rear hub motor e-bike's really heavy in the back. You can't bunny hop it, right? If you want to hit some sweet jumps with your friends, it's hard to do on a rear hub motor bike.
Yeah.
So this will be the first year we've done a mid-drive. We waited a long time to do that, mainly because all Magnums have a throttle. So there was this design element there that that needed to work around, and we needed to wait for either we were going to develop the tech ourselves or wait till someone did it.
Yeah.
And we're small enough that we actually waited till someone did it. Bafang and a few other companies came out with a mid-drive motor e-bike that also has a throttle.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't make you pedal. It was the danger, right? You can't have a throttle at the crank at the pedal unless there's some kind of freewheeling clutch mechanism built in.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for those. I think it'll be a different demographic, a more serious, like off-road and kind of performance rider than we've ever gone towards. And I've ridden those bikes a little bit. The prototypes we got, they're super fun.
I bet. So people are always interested in anything that has, assembly or a little factory, the skunk works of stuff. And you guys have that, right?
Certainly, we have assembly plants overseas. So it's an unfortunate fact about the bike industry. I know a lot of other industries in America are this way. The bikes aren't made here, right? Mm-hmm. And even the few companies in America that make bikes here, what they actually do is make like a frame, and then they get a bunch of parts from China and Taiwan, and they put them on them, so they're like assembled here.
Yeah.
So we're an American company. Certainly, our headquarters is here in Salt Lake. Our bikes are made overseas. So we have Magnum employees in China, and then we moved some production to Vietnam to get around tariffs. So
gotcha.
Everything's made over there, and then put in a container and shipped to us. We have a warehouse in South Jordan, so we bought an old Walmart there and turned it into a bike warehouse.
Cool. So even though you guys are small and growing, you still have the same problems as a big conglomerate behemoth, right?
Logistics, supply chain,
and shipping and containers and all
that. Yeah, and you learn the mistakes can be pretty expensive, to learn. We had a couple containers get left by our trucking company in the port for like 2 weeks. And if you leave a container in the port charges you a lot every day. That was a six-figure mistake. We won't do that again. Yeah. But you learn those mistakes and you move forward. And there's some really great things about how small we are. We're a relatively small company, and you can get us on the phone, and we do things, I wouldn't say old-fashioned, but we certainly don't do things as impersonal as some bigger companies. Yeah. And then we have a lot of growing pains that we've been going through.
Yeah, which is a good sign.
It's good.
Be a bit painful, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, the companies, I've been with them 2 plus years now, and we've grown 130% or so since I joined them.
Amazing.
So we're about 55 people now.
Yeah. All right. So I like the electric bikes. I'm kind of an evangelist without getting paid, right?
Sure.
If somebody's complaining about, I'm a little bit out of shape, I'm like, well, you should get an e-bike. Like, I have one. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And or if somebody's like, what would be really fun is if I could, pull the kid around in the kid cart, whatever those are called.
Sure. Little buggy or something.
Yeah. And but man, halfway through it's just miserable. I'm like, oh, you should get an e-bike, and then you guys will both have fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, you've got your competitors, and you've got the technology evolving. You've got to worry about all the normal things of a business. Ultimately, you got that demographic of 55 and older moving down, or big cities where there's commuters and food delivery, or is it Park City or Boise or those types?
Sure.
How do you guys kind of focus in on that demographic and then try to control that as much as you can?
Well, I think so. Our biggest market so far is in the Sun Belt. Okay. I think is where we have the most dealers. And these are just independent bike shops, right, that carry our brand. Florida is a huge state for us. California is a huge state for us. But then the Intermountain West is huge for us, too. So is the Northeast. Amish community. Oh, my gosh. We have maybe 6 or 8 really large volume Amish dealers in the Amish neighborhoods and areas in like Pennsylvania and stuff. They love e-bikes. It's a great way for them to, in a economical and like environmentally sound way, haul their butter or whatever they're doing. So we have kind of a weird mix of customers, I think. And we love the Intermountain West. I mean, we have our headquarters here, our warehouse here. Our first factory store we ever opened ourselves is here in Salt Lake, and then we opened another one in Park City last year. and we're going to certainly continue that. We're working on something down in St. George, I think, too.
Very cool.
And so, but we have that demographic pretty nailed down, that 55 and older customer, and certainly we're working on broadening the brand, and then broadening geographically the brand. There's some states where we don't even have a dealer, and then there's some states where we have 50 dealers. So we're working on like Texas, Alabama. There's certainly some states where we don't have a lot of dealers. What we found though is that it just takes someone with a few of our bikes in the back of a truck, and take them around, and there's something there for them. What we find too is we're a smaller company than some. Those bike shops that carry those bigger brands, they love us on their sales floor. Their customers may not come asking for a Magnum. Sometimes they do, but we don't spend as millions a year in advertising, right? So I'll be honest, like we don't drive as many customers to their door, but when their customers come in the door, they certainly a lot of the time go for a Magnum. And that dealer's loving it because they're getting a great margin out of it. We're great partners, and I think they feel like I've had several dealers tell me when I've apologized about supply chain issues, or like, oh, I'm so sorry you've been waiting on this part for a few weeks or a month, that we're not alone and that it can be worse. There's some companies they can't even get on the phone. So.
Yeah, I asked that question because outside looking in, I can just pontificate, right? I don't have to execute. You guys do.
Sure.
But I love asking that type of question for companies like you that, you've got your plan and your strategy, but like the Amish, never would have thought, right? But now it's
I didn't either. Till I worked for Magnum, I never even knew. They love e-bikes, not just our brand. The Amish love e-bikes. It's one of those things that doesn't compromise their morals or their religion, and they're also really good at our dealers that we have there are great at working on the bikes, and they're very industrious. Sometimes they've alerted us to issues. Going deep on the product. Like, hey,
very cool.
This battery had a bad button or something else, and it's pretty cool that way. You mentioned bigger cities and maybe food delivery drivers. That's where we don't have a lot of dealers currently. Like New York, I think we only have a couple. We have a bigger partner there called PC Richards that sells our bikes in like Long Island and stuff. But the city itself, e-bikes' future in the city is up in the air. There have been a lot of bad apples, like people buying cheap e-bikes and e-scooters and stuff on like Amazon. And those didn't have the quality and the safety certifications on the batteries. So there have been some fires and unfortunately some deaths in the city. And so the city was talking about banning e-bike batteries unless they met this really strict certification. They backed down from that, probably because of all the DoorDash drivers in the city or riders. But it's hard right now in the big population centers. There's a little bit of hysteria about the batteries, and I'll just tell you, like, they're the ones that cause the fires are way differently regulated than bikes like ours. The bike industry has to regulate their stuff a little different. And if you sell in Europe, you get a CE certification usually. And then UL is a certification a lot of companies in America like to use. And if your product has that, you're pretty good. If you look at any product you have in your bag right now, like I have some Bose pods, some like headphones in my bag right now. I was looking at them on the way here. They have a CE certification. Which is the European one. It's not the American one, but it's like, I trust them. I put them in my head, you know?
If you're going to make your livelihood, you might as well like have a bike that is viable and well made and won't burn you to a crisp. So
well, and I get the hysteria a little bit. If I lived in an apartment building in New York City, I would want them to keep someone from having one of those unsafe batteries in the building if we could. But so our one dealer there said he may not stay open. He's not sure. He's been still selling bikes, but he's worried that if the city makes some kind of law that bans e-bike batteries in general, what are they going to do?
No, it'll be a black market really quick.
Yeah, something.
Very quick.
They've talked about they would have to maybe put boxes on the sidewalk or something for them, like storage cases or something weird.
There's always a solution.
Yeah, there's a workaround.
Once you've given people a quicker, faster, efficient way, you can't take it away.
You can't take it away. No, the people won't stand for it.
No.
Yeah,
for 1 second. Yeah, those are like, as an entrepreneur building this business like you guys are, those would be like the fun stories where this is what we've made. This is how you use it. And they're like, well, cool. We're going to use it like this. Sweet. Right? That's fun. And if you're not having fun, I don't know what the purpose is. But,
amen. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Very cool. All right. So you've got the folks that are good engineers, you've got the folks that are good sales, supply chain, all of that. Eventually, in a group like that, there's going to be ideas, right? Like, we should make the bike look like this, or what if we designed it differently?
Sure.
How do you guys filter ideas? Who gets the ultimate say in the product design? And then, of course, anyone can be a tester if you want, right?
Sure.
How does that work just in a quick 30,000 foot view?
So I think previously, a lot of companies have this problem. I think you have the founder factor, where two people start a business, like they did at Magnum. Jesse and Yoni, our founders. They do everything. They do sales. They do marketing. They do product research. They do everything. And then at some point, they have to relinquish control of these babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have to give their baby to someone else in the company to scale, to grow. And certainly, we've gone through quite a bit of those headaches, and we're still going through them. You know, we have a marketing department now. We have an art department. We have videographers. We got a dude on our team that's a killer drone pilot, and like we can shoot our own beautiful videos. And that's something that I don't even know that they thought they would have 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that relinquishing control of the baby a little bit is hard for a company. You don't want to lose sight of what makes you cool and unique and special. And you want to stay, we've said we want to stay like we like the small feel we have. You know, like we have a very startup feel. There's always snacks in the kitchen. Some people work kind of a flexible schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we ask people to do things that are not in their job description sometimes, like go to events, wear a sales hat for a day, go test product. Like this last year, we did a new folding bike. And for 2-3 weeks in the summer, we were trying to get employees to ride a bike as much as possible. And they were product testing for us.
Yeah.
We'd be like, all right, you're going on a ride. You're going to follow this guy with the product team. And he's going to take you you guys are going 20 miles.
Yeah.
You good with that? And they're like, I guess so. And they were on the clock, you know, and like wearing a helmet. And we make sure that like things are safe. But that's one of the cool things about a company our size is that you can still really be a jack of all trades, or like, you know, we have some people in the company who are a Swiss Army knife for sure.
Yeah.
Like Catherine in our marketing department, she used to work customer support. She rides bikes as much as everybody else. But yeah, she's like a web guru. She can code. She's amazing. And, you know, someone like that is so valuable for a company like us.
Yeah.
Because in bigger companies, you have to stay in your lane a little, right? And there may be whole teams that do a thing. And then in companies like us, as we grow, we'll be more like that. But right now, we can veer out of our lane and still be really pertinent and effective for the company.
Yeah.
So I love that about it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And you can always tell, like, if somebody, you know, you're asking them questions about their company or their product, a lot of the times they've never even used it.
Sure. Yeah.
So they're really limited.
Yeah.
But I think you guys are kind of in that sweet spot where it's still all hands on board and like, yeah, I've ridden that bike 15 times, right?
Sure.
And,
yep. We want people to ride our bikes too. Our staff, you know, we have incentives too. If you've stayed with the company long enough, you get a free bike.
Yeah.
You can take a bike home at any time. I mean, I take a bike home every night, like I think I told you before, and it's not always the same bike. You know, sometimes it's a bike I haven't ridden for a while, or like a prototype. Right now, the bike I rode here today has a bunch of stuff zip tied to it. It's really ugly actually, but it's a prototype. We're testing out some GPS technology and some other stuff for people to like track their bike and you know, a little more tech to it. And so it's just funny to ride that thing around town. And it's like, oh, that's ugly. It's just a bunch of zip tied electrical on an e-bike. So that's
I love it.
Fun.
The tinkering never quits.
Yeah, certainly.
And that's how you get like really, really cool, refined products at the end of the day. And in 10 years, who knows what the bikes will look like and be capable of. And that's because the curiosity doesn't get turned off, right?
Yeah, I don't think it will. It seems almost boundless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned, you know, people can hop online, snag a bike, but dealers are kind of the critical part of your guys' sales strategy.
Sure.
How does that work? You know, you've got a dealer in Bozeman, Montana. They don't know you from Adam. You call them, you send them an email, you send them a free bike for a week.
Are you talking about like forging new accounts?
Yep.
Yeah, like
forging
how do we start a bike
accounts,
shop?
New relationships.
So for a while there was a really great tool, another Utah company called Beeline Connect. These guys, Beeline's great. They've linked up all these bike brands with bike shops that maybe don't carry their brand. And you could sell a bike on your website and have a bike shop build it. A bike shop you'd never talk to. Beeline's been building this relationship between bike shops and brands, which is really cool. And it helps soften the blow of selling a bike on your website. Bike shops don't always like that, right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, that was my sale. And they just bought it on your website. They came and test rode in my shop, and then they bought off your website.
Yeah.
So we took a line from them, and now we're using a company that I know Brooke's running and some other companies are using too, called Locally. Locally is great because we can split the sale with the dealer. They can share their inventory with us. So when someone goes on our website, they can see like, oh, there's a dealer in Park City, Magnum dealer. Oh, and it's a factory store. It's their store. They'll do service, and they have this bike in stock. So you can like buy it then or go ride it and buy it at the store. And so there's this like great, it makes it very fluid where we actually share the transaction with the dealer. As far as forging new accounts, cold calling is still pretty valuable, right? Mm-hmm. What we find when we do cold call is that most of the bike shops we talk to, they've seen our bike, or they maybe have had people ask about it, right? And so sometimes it'll be like that word of mouth adjacent. Oh, yeah, I heard, there's a dealer in the town over that sells your stuff. Yeah. And his customers come to me for service sometimes, for a flat repair, for whatever else. And then once we start talking about the profit margin, I think it's like usually a home run.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then, you eventually you'll be in every part of of America and then the globe, and
hopefully
it takes time, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like we are in Canada, we're in New Zealand, we have some distributors overseas, but America's certainly our biggest market and where we're focused. We live here, we work and play here.
Yeah.
So, America's an interesting market in that a lot of it's seasonal, but then you have the Sun Belt where the snowbirds go, and so you even get some business in the winter from those guys.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And you guys kind of have an advantage if you do your jobs right and everything works and the product's great, that you get free marketing, right? I think we were talking a little bit before, and it was the cul-de-sac.
The cul-de-sac effect. Yeah, what we call the cul-de-sac effect. If we sell an e-bike to a husband or wife, they inevitably end up buying two, his and hers, or his and his, or hers and hers, however it is. And then their neighbors inevitably end up going, oh, hey, I saw you. Is that one of those e-bikes? Yeah. So if they don't have an e-bike, you inevitably like sell to them and their friends and their neighbors, which then sometimes we're held hostage by people threatening to like post a bad review, right? I think this is the world we live in for consumer product companies. Someone can be like, I'm going to tell everyone that either they should buy a Magnum or they shouldn't buy a Magnum.
Yeah.
And so I want you to take care of me. And so we certainly try to negotiate with all those people and support the product. And also sometimes you bow down to a terrorist in a way, like you're giving in to a pretty outrageous demand. Like I want a free bike, or I want whatever it would be. We do that just because we want good blood, Yeah. And we understand that like we just want people to enjoy our bikes. Even a year, 2 years out, if they're out of warranty, we'll still sometimes cover it, just kind of like do the right thing.
Yeah.
And we're a small enough company, we can do that, right?
Yeah.
We don't answer to investors. We don't yet. And
And
we can kind of do what we want and just do the right thing. So I like that about us.
For sure. Yeah, I was thinking of that like a glass half full, but I don't live in your world where people are a bit malcontent.
Sure.
And they could go the opposite way. So yeah, one more thing that proves that I probably shouldn't work for Magnum Bikes, because I'd be like, that's what you're going to do? You're going to terrorize this like nice startup? Anyways, yeah.
It isn't always that way, but like I guess you're right. I went to a dark place. But we're coming off of a year and a half where supply chain was really hard. So we didn't have good answers for people sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was like, well, that part should be to us in, I'd say, 1 to 3 months, which is never fun to hear.
Yeah.
Especially if their bike isn't working.
Yeah.
And so we try to do the right thing. So like we've certainly this last year and a half sent out a bike for someone, even if they were just waiting on a part. We'd be like, listen, we know your bike's not running. Let's get you a new bike.
Yeah.
And so we still are in a bit of a supply chain crunch. It got better, and then it might be still getting worse.
Yeah.
That's just any product you get from overseas right now.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of merit to those that had to deal with this over the last 3 years, and just as an armchair quarterback, whether it's e-bikes or skis or whatever, golf clubs, there's going to be some valleys and some mountains, you'd think, over the next even 2 or 3 years, right? Like everyone's going to buy an e-bike. Let's ramp it up. Oh, now the economy's a little bit soft.
Sure.
And then it's just like, but that's part of being in business, I guess. You got to deal with
it. Is. I think the bike industry isn't alone in this, but I know lots of bike companies ramped up production
Yeah.
And some of them even bought everything they could. Like I know of another really popular electric bike brand in the US that I've heard has tens of thousands of units in their warehouse. Like they're sitting on this massive glut of inventory. And we had a healthy inventory just in case we had increased sales through the winter with our like Sunbelt dealers. So we're sitting on some bikes too as we enter the new year. But not near as many. It's not crippling. We did it for a reason. We wanted to make sure we had some inventory, and we have new bikes on the way still. So it could have been worse for us. I know some companies though went like too big, too deep on the supply chain.
Yep. And those are the ones you kind of hear about in either, in the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Sure.
Or, just in the back channel gossip. There's always, you're pushing your chips in.
Yeah, I know some big brands, even Giant, they're one of the biggest bike companies in the world. They opened a new factory during COVID, and then they shut it down promptly because they were like, nope, we foresee a decline in this demand.
Yep. Yeah, there's always the fickle part of the markets. All right, so folks, and I, again, would recommend e-bikes. They're just fantastic. If you want to feel young again and get there faster, not sweaty, call to action here for folks. You've got the dealers, but what's the best place for folks to start to learn about Magnum bikes?
Then go to magnumbikes.com. There's also quite a few fun videos on our YouTube channel. We got a couple of younger guys in our guys and gals in our marketing team that are just doing fun like TikToks and stuff. Those all go on YouTube too. But if you want like a good overview of lots of our bikes or reviews posted by third parties, some of our dealers, they're like Electric Bike Review, EBR, they're a big third party reviewer. That's a fun place too. It's just like our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So we're kind of in the middle of winter, but the spring and summer will come.
It's coming soon. Oh yeah. I'm thinking like 4 weeks. It's going to start melting.
So it's probably a good time to snag a Magnum bike, and you can also ride them in the winter.
That's true. You can. Fat tire bikes. And yeah, we still rent bikes daily in Park City right now, even in the middle of the winter. Yep. And right now the film festival's up there, Sundance. We've been doing quite a few rentals out of our little store up there.
Yeah, put on some gloves and a scarf and a hat.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen these neoprene mitts that fit on the handlebar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the integrated ones. That's what we put on our rental bikes during the winter.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
It accomplishes the same thing. All right, and so, this was in partnership with the Utah Outdoor Association. You guys are a member there.
Yeah, we love those guys.
Fantastic group that's, propping up companies in Utah that do stuff for a lot of the demographics of Silicon Slopes. They do their job, work in their office, and then they go ride bikes and they go camping. And so we've got a great partnership with them. And this will be one of the first of many of Utah Outdoor Association Meat and Potatoes podcast synergies. So thank you so much, Dusty. Really appreciate you taking the time, and looking forward to a fun summer of e-biking.
Yeah, let's go on a ride.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you.